Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, this recording, I don't know whether it has started or not. It doesn't turn to red. Okay, all right. Okay, I guess this is the second session. Let's start. Okay, this is the one, right? Oh, all right. So today we are actually going to look at one layer above the disk file systems. In this first session, we discussed about the disk file systems and how the inode blocks and disk blocks are ordered on different file systems and how you can access and do modifications on these files. Today we will actually see how the lowermost layer of GlusterFS, which is like the POSIX layer, is going to interact with the disk file systems. Okay. If there are any doubts, please stop me and ask questions because I'm expecting this to be a little bit of like an interactive session. Okay. So GlusterFS is a user space file system, so it does not have any access to the underlying physical disk. So XFS, ZFS, Btrfs, ext4, all these file systems, they actually can operate directly on the block device, which is not the case with they actually manipulate the block device directly, which is not the case with GlusterFS. So GlusterFS is going to manipulate the files or directories on these disk file systems. So wherever GlusterFS needs to store some extra attributes to detect some things that it has, it will store them as extended attributes. Okay. So the most of this functionality will be present in the POSIX translator. So translator is like a unit in GlusterFS which will transform some of the operations on these files or directories. What exactly is a translator and how it operates, etc., will be covered in the next session. Today we are going to mostly look at the arguments that would actually come to these accelerator operations. Okay, so we have discussed something similar in the earlier session where you have a path, file descriptor, and the directory file descriptor / name. All of them can access the file on the disk. So GlusterFS actually accesses the file on the disk file system using either a GlusterFS handle or an actual path on the disk file system. So there are two ways to access the file. So we will now actually look at how a file gets stored on the disk file system and how GlusterFS actually tries to manipulate. Okay, this will be like a demo. I'm creating a plain distribute mount point.
Pranit, can you increase the font size?
Oh, okay. Is this better?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. All right. So this is the plain distribute volume. Only one brick is there, which is at /home JFS T10. On my system, it is an XFS file system. If we create a file, okay, we will also create a directory. Okay, so here what we have, okay, 1 second. GFS T10. Okay, so this is a break. and this is the mount. The one above is the mount, one below is the brick. So you can see the contents are similar. But if you do ls minus a, then the contents will be different. So you have this hidden directory called .glusterfs that doesn't get exposed to the mount point. So all the internal data of glusterfs generally gets stored inside this .glusterfs directory. Okay. We can also look at these. Just okay. So you can see that there are some external attributes that are present here which are not showing up here. So these are again internal to glusterfs. Okay. So this trusted.gfid is the one that we are interested for today. These things maybe we can cover in the subsequent sessions. So this is something called as a glusterfs ID or GFID. Any file or a directory that is showing up on the mount point will have such a unique GFID. Okay. So you can see that this one and this one, they are different. So this is the first bit of difference that you will see. Now the second thing is the inode number. Okay. If you do ls minus I on a here, so you will see that these are two different numbers. So this inode number actually is derived from the GFID. It is generally the lower 64 bits of the GFID. GFID is 128 bits. It's a normal UUID, version 4 of the UUID. And lower 64 bits of the GFID are actually shown as an inode number on the mount. So that is the second bit of information. Now you will also see one more difference. You see here that there are two hard links, whereas here there is only one hard link. Okay. The other hard link is going to be inside glusterfs. We have 46. Oh, so this is the hard link for the file A. Okay. So when you create a file, it is creating a normal file which is like in the same path that is relative to the mount here on the brick, but it is also creating this one more hard link so that you can access the file using just the inode information, which is the GFID. This is important because all operations on any files in glusterfs happen on inodes, not on paths. So there is an operation called lookup, which will map a file path to an inode. Once that happens and that information is passed on to the mount, all subsequent operations will come on this inode. Okay. Okay, so 1 second. Yeah, so the other one is the directory. So this is how all files are laid out except for the directory, because directory does not have any hard links in disk file systems because it can lead to cycles. So how is a directory laid out is what we will look at. Okay, so this is a directory. Okay, I think it is. Let's look at this. So it's a similar concept here also. you will see that the inode number is different for directory compared to the one on the mount, the inode number. But the rest of the things will be similar, meaning this also will have GFID. The interesting bit is the number of links. Okay, that is there is no change here and here. Okay, that is because if you look at this dot cluster fs and 2938, we can look at it like this. So you see that there is a soft link to this directory, and this path is relative to this directory. Okay, so let's try to understand this part. Dot dot slash dot dot slash. So we are going into, oh sorry, where are we? 2938. Okay, let's look at it from here. So this is the present directory where this file is in. So dot dot slash dot dot slash, so it is going into dot cluster fs. Okay, now it is going into 0000. Okay, now what do we have here? We have a GFID which is all zeros and 1. So this is the root directory of the brick. This is pointing to root directory of the brick, which is the home ZFS D1 underscore 0 in this brick. Okay. Oh, sorry. So it is this. Okay. So it is always relative to the parent GFID. So it is parent GFID slash name. Okay. So if you do ls-l like this, because of the soft link resolution, the same contents that are present on root brick will be visible here also. Okay. So these are the same things. So if you try to create one more directory, and let's try to do the same thing again. So its GFID is some 87. So 87 v2 something. Let's try to figure out what that is. 87 v2. If you look at this one, now it will be relative to its parent directory, which is D, which had 2938 some big UUID slash D1. So the directories always have the GFIDs arranged in this way. Okay, does that make sense? All other properties would be similar, just the layout in the dot cluster fs would differ for directories compared to files, because hard links are not allowed on directories. So we use soft links. Are there any doubts at this point?
No, Pranit, all good. We can move.
Okay, cool. All right. So let's look at the ways GlusterFS accesses these files. So from now on, inode is nothing but the file that is present on the file system. Okay, from GlusterFS point of view. So this was the similar slide that was present in the earlier sessions, where I was telling that you can access the inode through these three handles. One is a path, another is a file descriptor, and the other one is directory fd slash path from relative to this directory fd. we will try to map how these things translate into GLUSTFS. Okay. So the first thing is path. Okay. The path data structure in GLUSTFS is something called as LOC_T. Okay. It has these attributes. One is like a path. Name is like the final. Okay, I think I can probably show it like this. So yeah, so if this is the path, this will be the name. Just this D1 will be the name. The whole thing will be called as path. And this inode_T of this both that is representing the inode and parent. So inode is nothing but the inode that is going to represent this file. This parent inode is going to represent parent directory of this file. So in this example, if you look at this, like this for B2, if B2 is the inode, this is going to correspond to parent inode. Okay. GFID is the same GFID that we have seen before, the trusted.gfid, this one. And parent GFID is like the GFID of the parent directory. So these are the attributes that will be present in this LOC_T, which represents the path. Now, there is one issue here. That is, you can access any file or a directory using two paths. One is the normal, when users access it, they access it using path, like this D/D1, which is how user applications and users access these files or directories. But inside GLUSTFS, it accesses it using these GLUSTFS handles, which are based on pgfid/name or just GFID. Okay, so in this structure, this parent GFID and parent/name or just the inode and GFID. If you provide any of these two variants, you can access the file. Does it make sense? You should either have a parent GFID, which is either through parent inode or parent GFID value /name, which is like the final component in the path, or you can only have this inode and GFID. Either way is fine. You can access the file and do some operations on it. Okay. This is a tricky concept. Do you guys have any doubts here? Does that make sense? Okay, I am guessing that is fine. Okay, so now if all operations in GLUSTFS are going to be done on an inode, there has to be an operation which is going to convert from path to the inode, right? So this operation, which is so all such operations in GLUSTFS are called FOPs. All system calls, all disk system calls are essentially going to be represented in GLUSTFS as FOPs, which is short form for file operations. So lookup is actually the FOP that does the resolution of a path to a inode. So let's briefly look at what this inode is. What lookup does and what this inode is. So let's go to the code now. Okay, I hope this is fine. Okay, so this is the POSIX lookup, so which is present in Xlator storage POSIX. All right. The main thing that is important here is how does POSIX actually convert path to an inode. So it is actually getting these arguments to the call. So these frame is something that we will discuss in the fourth developer session. Accelerator is something that we will discuss in the next session. So for now, you guys don't worry too much about these two. But dict_t is like a dictionary in Python, which is like a key values kind of a thing that is implemented in GlusterFS. LOC_t is the one that we already had. Okay. Now in lookup, I will try to. So anytime it actually says handle is something that is going to refer to the GFID. Okay. So these are all some special cases that it handles. But at the main, okay, so this is something that is important. So one is LOC nameless, which actually is that means, like, this name is not present. We talked about two variants of lookup, right? One, you only have the inode information. Another one, you have parent inode information and name. So if the LOC is nameless, that means it only was given inode and GFID. Okay. In that case, it will try to do this, try to get the absolute path for the GFID. So which basically gets these .GlusterFS .GlusterFS / the GFID, the first 2 hex digits, second 2 hex digits, and the other one. But there was a recent performance improvement to do that a little bit better, where you can refer it via directory fd / the rest of the path. But before this one was done, this is how it was. Okay. So this is here you can see this one better. So GFID is like a 16 byte, which is like 128-bit normal UID. So this hidden path is the .GlusterFS. Okay. This is like the brick path / .GlusterFS / first 2 hex digits, second 2 hex digits, and the rest of the GFID with name. So we are trying to do a lookup based on just the GFID. Okay. All right. The other variant is going to be this thing called as pstat, which is when there is a parent available. So if there is a nameless lookup, it is doing this. Otherwise, it is going to do the parent one. The parent path we are going to get by entry handle, which basically tries to give you the path to the parent directory. Okay. So this is like a macro which kind of constructs, if the LOC has absolute path, it will use that absolute path. Otherwise, it will basically try to do something like a stat on this, then it will go and do a stat on this, then it will try to, sorry, not a stat, it will keep doing read links to get a full path. Meaning, if let me give you guys an example. So if you want to figure out the path to D1, full path, absolute path, so what it will do is it will do a read link of its GFID first. which will get D1 this whole thing. Then it will remember D1. Then it will do a read link of this, which will get mm, 29, 38, 38. So it will do a read link on 29, 38 this GFID. Then it will get this path. So it will note down, okay, it is till here it is D/D1. Then it will do a read link again on this GFID, which is the parent of this directory. So it will go to this one. At this point, it will detect that because the GFID is 0001, it knows that it is the root of the directory, so it can directly use the brick path. So, but I hope it is. Did you guys understand what happened here? I can explain that a bit better if you guys want. So basically, if you have something like D/D1/ something like A, let's say, we are doing a lookup on this path relative to the mount. So we will get parent inode of D1, which is this 87 something, all of this, right? So to do the lookup, it needs to find out the complete path of this. So it will do a read link, it will get the final component, then it will go and do a read link on whatever is the parent GFID of that one. Then it will get the component, the final component D. Now that this is 0001, it knows that it is the brick root. So it now has a complete path of that directory. Okay. So once it gets the complete path, it just needs to append the name and then it will do a stat. Okay. So essentially in a lookup, given an LOC, it has to find out all the information that you need to create an inode. Okay. So there is this concept of stack winding and unwinding, which we will discuss about in the fourth one, which is along with this frame pointers and all that. But for now, we can just think of whole lookup as something like, if you do lookup on LOCT with some options, it will give you GFID stat information. Okay. So essentially we are trying to get this information. Stat information contains the inode attributes like the type of file, etc., etc. GFID is the one that we need in GlustRefs to refer to it later. Okay. So now let's look at this a bit in detail. So using this information, we can construct an inode. Okay, so that is the purpose of this lookup. So for now, forget about this table. The table is like the inode table, which has all the inodes that you have ever looked up that you want to keep in memory. You will keep that in this inode table. We can go into this data structure a bit later, not in this session. GFID is something that you guys already know, which is like something that lookup is giving you. So you can populate this one. We will look at these things a little bit later. So IA type is something like what is the type of the file which is present in the stat structure. So essentially you have these two that are important that you are getting from inode. Rest of the things are just there to do lifetime management of this structure. So ref is a reference count of this inode. So if X number of operations on a mount are using, or on a brick are using this inode, the reference count would be that. And if it is linked to the table, it will be one more. So it is basically whenever you want to use this inode, you will reference this inode. Whenever you don't want to use this inode, you will do an unreference. If the inode is already present in the inode table, you don't need to do a lookup. So basically, you can think of it like a cache of all the inodes that are actively looked up in the past X minutes or seconds. It will be maintained in an LRU cache. Okay. So this FD list and FD count are like the next data structure, which is like on this inode, how many file descriptors are open. So if you open this file, a new data structure called FD will be created and it will be added into the FD list in this one. Okay. Then there is another thing called as Dentry list. Dentry list is also similar to, okay, so this is something that I've already explained in the code. Dentry is like is a short form for directory entry. So you basically have the parent inode, name of this inode in this parent directory, and the inode of this file itself. So this will be stored in the Dentry table when you do an inode link. Inode link is an operation which will link this inode into the table of all the inodes. So when you do a lookup, you get two structures at the end. One is inode T, the other is Dentry T, which will be stored in the inode table and Dentry table. Okay, so this is like the basic operation that would happen before any other operation can happen on that file or a directory in GlusterFS. Okay. Any doubts so far? Okay, I think I'll go to the next one. So the next structure is FD. Oh. All right. So this FD structure and the inode structure are linked. Okay, so once a file gets opened, it will be added to this FD list. So what do we have in FD? So there are some other things also in the FD that are related to lifetime management, but I'm only going to cover the ones that are important for this session. We can talk about the other ones in a later session. So when you open an FD, generally the system call would have some flags like open. So some flags would be given whether it is allowed only for reading, writing, appending, etc., etc. So those kinds of things would be present in this FD flags. Reference count is similar to that of inode underscore t's reference count. If an operation is using this FD, it will have an extra reference count. If file operation, sorry, not object. If a file operation uses this FD, it will have an extra reference count. As long as the file is open, the ref count will be 1. When you do a close, the reference count will become will be reduced by 1. And once all of the operations on this FD are done, then the FD will get freed. Okay, and this FD will have a reference to the inode it belongs to. Okay, so these are all linked. FDT, Dentry T, and this inode T are all linked. So we can actually look up the open operation now, which will convert either an LOCT or an inode underscore T to an FD. Okay, so if you either get a, you basically need a GFID. Open always comes on a GFID. Okay, on an inode, which has to be represented as a GFID. So let's look at that one now. So frame and this, let's forget about it for now. The other operations are the LOC, flags, and FD, and this Xdata is some other options. So basically what we are trying to do here is given an open with LOC and flags, we are trying to get an FD object. Okay. So there is also X data, which is all right. So essentially it will have to do an open at some point. So there will be some corner cases that GlusterFS doesn't support, etc. But the main thing is again the same way. So you have to create an inode handle, which is like a path to the GFID. This I will actually show in the demo also. So, but essentially it will do open with whatever is the path. The path is actually like it is queried from this inode handle, which is the .GlusterFS path, and flags is something that is an input to this function. Then these are like some special case handling that we don't need to worry about. So this sys underscore system calls are all system interface. So if you look at these things, right, essentially it will become a system call on this file system, on the existing disk file system. And these are all like, you know, all these OS system calls could be different on different platforms. So the one that is there in Linux is always like if def else, yeah. So this is the Linux system call. This is Mac, and this is FreeBSD. Okay. So different different OSs can implement these things differently, but yeah, and they'll have some special handling. So this sys, everything that you see here is sys underscore something. So this syscall.c is a OS independent implementation. Basically, all the OS specific implementations will go into this file, so that POSIX can directly use this variant sys underscore something to do the actual system call. Okay, these are all some these are all special cases, but basically all we want is this FD number, which will be stored inside POSIX now in the POSIX context. So the flags and the FD get stored, and it will be set as a context in the FD. And now you have an FD that you can bind to the inode. Okay, so there is an operation called FD bind, which will actually bind this FD into this inode. So we have seen this FD count and list, right? So this FD is getting added to this inode list, and the FD count gets incremented. So now you basically created an FD FD object on which you can do operations from now on. Okay. So this is the next operation on this. So once you have either an FD or an LOC, any operation is going to be about how you are taking the FOB and how you are converting it into the system call on the disk, handling all the special cases that are there. Okay. At this point, do we have any doubts? Okay. So we will just take a look at some of the system calls, these FOBs to system call conversions and how they happen in POSIX translator. So to get a list of all the FOBs that are present at the moment, you can take a look at this GlusterFS FOB-T. So you will see here, like, you know, stat, read link, mknode, mkdir, all this, like, you know, setattr, readdir, remove etc, allocate, all these things are supported in GlusterFS. So you can send these operations, file operations, and they will be converted to the underlying disk file system call. Okay. So let's look at some operations. Did I note some operations? Yeah. So let's look at mkdir. Okay, because we have already looked at open and lookup, we'll look at mkdir now. You will get a feel for what exactly is happening at the end. Okay, so essentially POSIX mkdir, if you look at mkdir, it is going to basically do creation of the directory, and it will give these errors if there are any failures, otherwise 0 for success. Okay, so as usual, you have this LOCT, which is like a path. Mode and mask are the ways you can specify some things in the mkdir arguments. Xdata will always be there. These are like some vector specific operation options. If you want to configure, you can send them here. So once you have this LOC and the other arguments, essentially you will find some mkdir somewhere. Okay, so you are seeing here that it creates the mode. Okay, well, let's actually see where what this. Okay, umask is for. Okay, umask it is not using, only mode, I think. Okay, so yeah, it will do the mkdir, which is like a sys mkdir. 1 second. Yeah, it will do sys mkdir. Okay, then the UID GID of the user ID and group ID. So if you do, oh wait a second, I also said I will show some demo, right? Let's look at, sorry, in open I wanted to show you guys something which I forgot. So this is the PID of the brick. Okay, so you can do watch slash proc this one ft plus minus L. So you can see that okay, let me actually, if it is not showing everything, let me do a DD. 4K. So if you look at ls minus L of this, there will be a file that, okay, so this is, so if you do a DD on something that hasn't been created so far, you are seeing that it is showing the actual path, right? Okay. Now let's say you do a control C and now you do one more DD on this. Now it will happen on the GFID, I think. Yeah, so now it shows the GFID instead of the D1_0 path. Okay. So generally, if you do any open on an existing file, it will happen on the GFID handle. If you do operation on the new file, it will happen on the actual path. That is because the system calls have two variants of opening the file. One is POSIX_create. So, okay, this is the POSIX_create, which will also do a create at system_sysopen. Okay, with O_create or some. Create will have, yeah, create will have like this O create, and after that it will do an open. So basically the file gets created. So all right, so this is something that I wanted to show, that you can open the file in both ways. So based on whether you are using this parent inode / name versus GFID, you will see different types of operations on the actual file system. Okay, so let's go back to our POSIX mkdir. So given any input, that we have here, essentially it will go to its actual system call on the disk. It will do some extra things like, setting up the UID GID correctly. So it also sets up the GFID as an extended attribute. So why is it doing all these stats is something that we can see later. But for now, don't need to worry about it. This stat of the actual file or directory that gets created is how it actually is going to create the inode. Okay. So to create the inode, you basically have this GFID and this stat. Okay, so these are the two things you always need for a GFID. Any creation operation, you can also look at something like single. So again, it will. So you will see that all of these things now will have a similar pattern. So you have a link name and the LOC. Okay, and you will see some form of a link that will happen. So yeah, you will see that it is doing the symlink with the link name and for the real path. Real path it will get from the LOC. Link name is provided. Okay, then it will again set the UID GID here. Then it will do a stat. Once it does a stat, it will send all of that information to the caller, and it will create a inode. You can see some more also. Let's look at some FD operation. It's right now, right? I think. Okay. So let's look at right 64. I think. Yeah. Okay. So this is the form of write that actually happens on the disk. For that, you need an FD, you need some buffer, and it is like the size of that one and what is the offset, etc. So these things you will get in the POSIX call. So we actually in Gluster use the IO vector that is like an array of buffers that you can send to the underlying disk file system. But again, you will see the same thing, like it is doing a write way at the end from the FD, and there is a vector, and then like it has to do a loop because this is like a multiple buffers can be sent, so that kind of thing will be there. So you can do, let's say, POSIX truncate. Let's say truncate. If you do a truncate, it's the same thing again. Like you get an LOC, you get an offset, and it will essentially do a 6_ truncate. Okay, you can also see POSIX F truncate. So so this one gets an FD because it's an FD based operation, and again offset gets transferred. So again, same thing will happen. You will see that it is going to have F truncate at some point. Okay, so now you kind of get a similarity between all of the FOBs to the actual underlying system call in all of these things. So with this explanation, now you can actually look at any of the FOBs that are there. Okay, where are the FOBs examples here? Okay, there are too many POSIX. Okay. Okay, so these are all the file operations the POSIX actually implements. So basically, essentially, for all of these FOBs, there is an underlying system call that it will call, and the return the output that the system call gives, along with the extra output that GlusterFS needs, it will combine both of them and return to the caller. So essentially, that's all that is going to happen in this lowest layer of Gluster, which is POSIX translator. Okay, yeah. So that concludes the our session. Are there any doubts? Okay, there are no doubts. I'll stop the recording.